Far from the bustling streets of Washington and the chaos of political headlines, something is happening on a chain of islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, something that almost no one is talking about. It's not in the evening news. It's not trending on social media. But if what's unfolding in Hawaii is true, it could be one of the most quietly dangerous moves any U.S. administration has made in decades. Migrants, plucked from communities thousands of miles away, are being shipped to a federal detention center in Honolulu, cut off from their families, their lawyers, and any real chance of fighting their cases. And the most disturbing part? This isn't an accident. It's part of a much bigger, carefully orchestrated plan, a plan that combines mass federal policing, hidden deportation pipelines, and a rapid expansion of detention facilities that critics say mirrors some of history's darkest examples of state control. What's happening right now could change the way America handles immigration forever. And if you think it stops at Hawaii, think again. It started quietly, with a handful of unexplained transfers that barely made a blip on the radar. Migrants who had been held in detention centers in California, Arizona, and even as far away as Texas, suddenly vanished from the federal tracking system. Families searching for them were told almost nothing, just that their loved ones had been moved to a secure location. That secure location turned out to be the federal detention center in Honolulu, a towering facility just minutes from the airport and surrounded by the turquoise waters that make Hawaii famous. But inside, there's nothing tropical about it. Former detainees describe it as cold, overcrowded, and intentionally isolating, a place designed to keep people cut off from the outside world. The transfer process itself is shrouded in secrecy. Flights are unannounced, detainees are handcuffed during transport, and most don't even know they're headed to Hawaii until the plane is already in the air. By the time they land, they're thousands of miles from any family member or legal advocate who might be able to help. Critics say this is no coincidence. Moving migrants to the middle of the Pacific makes it harder for lawyers to visit, harder for media to investigate, and easier for deportations to happen without public scrutiny. It's an island pipeline built for invisibility. And as disturbing as that sounds, it's only the surface layer of the strategy. Because what's happening inside the facility itself raises even bigger red flags. From the outside, the federal detention center in Honolulu looks like just another high-security building. Concrete walls, guarded gates, and the quiet hum of traffic passing by. But inside, according to multiple first-hand accounts, is a very different story. Former detainees describe dormitory-style cells crammed far beyond their intended capacity. Privacy is non-existent. Lights stay on through the night, making real sleep almost impossible. Meals are bare bones, just enough to keep people going, but never enough to make them feel human. Even basic medical care is limited. Several detainees claim that requests for doctors were delayed for days, sometimes weeks. One former inmate recalls watching another man collapse from a medical condition and waiting over an hour before staff responded. Then there's the isolation. Phone calls to the mainland are expensive, heavily monitored, and often cut short without explanation. Visits from lawyers are rare because flying to Hawaii is costly, and scheduling time inside the facility is deliberately complicated. Human rights groups argue that this isolation isn't just a side effect, it's the point. By cutting detainees off from their support systems, the government increases the likelihood that they'll give up on fighting their cases. It's psychological warfare, one immigration attorney told us. They're not just detained, they're disappeared. And while all of this might sound like a bureaucratic overreach, there's growing evidence it's part of a much larger federal playbook, one that's already expanding beyond Hawaii. What's happening in Honolulu isn't an isolated experiment, it's a prototype. Internal memos leaked to advocacy groups suggest that the Department of Homeland Security has been studying the logistical advantages of offshore-style detention for years. Hawaii, with its distance from the mainland and limited public access, offered the perfect testing ground. The documents outline something called the Remote Holding Initiative, a plan to relocate certain categories of detainees to locations far from major population centers. While Hawaii is the most extreme example, similar expansions are reportedly underway in Guam, Puerto Rico, and even remote parts of Alaska. Supporters of the program inside DHS claim it's about streamlining processing and reducing overcrowding in mainland facilities. But critics see something far more sinister. a deliberate effort to hide detainees from public view and reduce the odds of successful legal challenges. And the money flowing into the program is staggering. Contracts worth millions have been awarded to private prison corporations to manage and expand these remote facilities. In Hawaii's case, additional construction has already begun to increase capacity, even as the government publicly claims the center is not overcrowded. One whistleblower from inside the Honolulu facility put it bluntly, "They don't want people to know this place exists, but they also want it big enough to handle thousands." That raises the question, if this model works the way DHS hopes, who exactly will be sent here next? And why is the government being so careful to keep the public in the dark? If you want to understand why this secretive system is growing, you have to follow the money. And in Hawaii's case, the trail leads straight to some of the biggest private prison operators in the country. Public records show that CoreCivic, a billion-dollar corporation that already runs dozens of detention centers nationwide, has secured a lucrative long-term contract to operate and expand the Honolulu facility. That deal alone is worth tens of millions, with bonuses tied to keeping the facility near maximum capacity. Then there's the political side. Campaign finance data reveals that these same corporations have poured significant donations into the war chests of key lawmakers on the Homeland Security and Appropriations Committees. In fact, one senator who publicly defended the remote holding initiative received more than $100,000 in combined contributions from private prison PACs in a single election cycle. Local politics play a role too. Some Hawaiian officials have quietly welcomed the expansion, citing the jobs and federal dollars it brings to the islands. But that support comes at a moral cost, and it's sparking quiet dissent among community leaders who don't want Hawaii turned into what one activist called a human warehouse in paradise. And while all of this money and political muscle keeps the operation humming, it also creates a dangerous incentive. The more beds they fill, the more money they make, which begs the uncomfortable question: are detention policies being shaped by public safety needs or by corporate profit margins? The answer might be clearer than the government wants you to believe. And to see it, we need to look at who's actually ending up on those flights to Hawaii. The government insists the Honolulu facility houses high-priority detainees, people with serious criminal records or national security concerns. But leaked intake logs tell a very different story. In reality, many of those flown to Hawaii are asylum seekers, visa overstays, and people with no criminal history beyond minor immigration violations. One 62-year-old grandmother from Central America was sent there after missing a single court date, despite living in the U.S. for over a decade without incident. Immigration attorneys say this isn't an accident. By targeting individuals with fewer resources, the government minimizes the chance of public outcry. These aren't high-profile cases that make the news, one lawyer explained. They're everyday people who simply disappear into the system. And the transfers are happening fast. In some cases, detainees are given less than 24 hours notice before being put on a plane. Families often have no idea where their loved ones are until weeks later, if they find out at all. For those inside, fighting their case becomes nearly impossible. Evidence, witnesses, and legal support are all thousands of miles away. It's not about processing cases, a former ICE officer admitted. It's about breaking people down until they give up. The profiles emerging from Honolulu suggest a troubling pattern. This isn't just a detention center, it's a tool for making certain immigration cases quietly disappear. And that's where the next twist comes in. Because there are signs the public was never meant to find out about this facility at all. From the start, secrecy has been baked into the Honolulu operation. Journalists who've tried to visit the facility are stonewalled with national security excuses. Even members of Congress have been told they need special clearance, an almost unheard-of restriction for domestic detention centers. Inside sources say staff are ordered not to speak to the press and warned that leaking information could result in prosecution under federal security laws. One whistleblower described the culture as absolute lockdown, not just for the detainees, but for the truth. But cracks are forming. Over the past year, a handful of insiders have begun passing documents and photos to advocacy groups, revealing overcrowded dorms, poor medical care, and the rapid construction of new wings. These whistleblowers say they're motivated by the same fear, that the Honolulu facility is just the first step in a nationwide system designed to disappear people out of public reach. The government's response? double down on secrecy. Contractors have been instructed to move detainees during scheduled inspections, making it appear the population is smaller and conditions less severe than they really are. Some detainees have even been shipped to other islands temporarily to hide them from visiting officials. One whistleblower put it bluntly, "They know the public wouldn't stand for this if they saw it up close. That's why they're making sure no one ever does." But the harder they try to hide it, the more determined these insiders become. And now, their information is fueling lawsuits that could blow the whole thing wide open. The Honolulu facility might have stayed in the shadows indefinitely, if not for a growing wave of lawsuits challenging its very existence. Civil rights attorneys argue the transfers violate detainees' constitutional rights to due process by making it nearly impossible to access legal representation. One class action lawsuit filed in federal court claims the government is using Hawaii as an offshore legal loophole, placing detainees in a location so remote it functions like a black site. The suit cites the leaked transfer logs, testimonies from former staff, and shocking photos of the overcrowded facility. Immigration advocacy groups are also stepping in, filing emergency motions to stop the transfer of detainees with active court cases in other states. In one case, a judge ordered ICE to immediately return a detainee to California after learning they had been flown to Honolulu without notice, calling the move a blatant attempt to obstruct the judicial process. The government, for its part, is fighting back hard. In court filings, officials claim the program is lawful, necessary, and essential to national security. But behind closed doors, multiple attorneys involved in the litigation believe the administration fears a full trial could expose damaging internal communications, ones that could prove this program was designed from the start to avoid public oversight. If the courts side with the plaintiffs, it could trigger an unprecedented level of transparency and possibly force the shutdown of the Honolulu facility. But if the government wins, it could set a dangerous precedent, giving officials even broader power to hide detention operations from the public. Either way, the outcome will send ripples far beyond Hawaii's shores. The Honolulu detention facility isn't just a building in the middle of the Pacific. It's a symbol of a system that works best when it's invisible, a place where people can vanish without headlines, without oversight, and without hope. For the detainees trapped there, the ocean isn't a postcard backdrop. It's a wall of water, cutting them off from their families, their lawyers, and the outside world. And unless the lawsuits succeed, that wall will stay firmly in place. The secrecy is the point. The remoteness is the point. The silence is the point. Because the less we know, the less we question. But the whistleblowers, the attorneys, and the families searching for answers are sending a clear message. They're not going away. Every document leaked, every story told, every court filing is one more crack in the wall. And maybe, just maybe, if enough light gets in, this hidden island won't stay hidden forever. So the question now isn't just what's happening in Honolulu. The question is, how many more hidden islands are out there waiting to be exposed?